There's nothing like putting you all off with box 21 dangling before the screen, and this has come from Alan, our very kind mystery benefactor. Hi Richard, this radio is scrap, thought it may be useful for spares. Now, it's come, so I thought we were getting a Giessen KT750. No, we're not getting a Giessen KT750, but that's a nice outer box. What we're getting is we've got an elderly microphone, which I wouldn't be surprised isn't a ceramic element and would be ideal for one of my vintage Heathkit ham radio things. So thank you very much for that. We'll test that and discuss that no doubt in the future. That is useful and they're hard to come by. Right, put that on the bench behind me, out of the way. So what we have here is a current model, a Thunderpole T800. So this is the scrap radio in question, which I would have thought was still under warranty, but there you go. So, no screws. Let's see what it does. Obviously we'd need to change the power lead if this could be got going. I will put that cigarette lighter away from the realistic, which Mr. Chippie made that lead up, didn't he? Even better if there's somewhere to put it. Really needs to go back in Mr. Chippie's room. Right. Put the soldering iron on in the hope, you know. So we'll put it on 13.8 volts and let's see what happens. It's on CE right now. I've forgotten what the programming procedure is. I'll have to dig out the manual. Oops, take the motor adapter off. I've been looking forward to this ever since it came, which was about 3 weeks ago, as we've been going through them in strict sequence. So at the moment it's saying it's on CE, so, or is it up, down? So we've got no transmit, and it's only drawing 130 milliamps. Let's see whether it's receiving. So I'll put it on 27205. We'll get the signal generator on there. I get an awful lot of messages from people who buy brand new CP multinorms, and for some reason they can't get them to go onto the UK set of channels. And my usual answer is I'll look it up and say it's on page 9 of the instruction book, and if you haven't got the instruction book, send me your email address and I'll send you a copy free, you know. So we're not going to worry about it being in UK or not until if we could get the set working. So we've got 27205 on the signal generator. I will just show you, just so that you know that we're on 27205. So this is channel 20 for CPT. Absolutely nothing coming through, so it's got no transmit and no receive. You know what, I will get the instruction book. I'll have to print it off, so you won't be aware that I'll be coming back 20 minutes later, because there may be a master reset to do. Just before I do that, it may just be sensible to open the setup and actually check that most of the works is in there. It always surprises me why current sets aren't going back under warranty. Oh, that's probably one reason you wouldn't send it back under warranty. Had the audio IC replaced, and is that even the right? Yeah. Anyway, that doesn't stop it from transmitting. I think we'll unplug the speaker. Oh, they have a read relay in these, do they? Yeah, well, I can't see anything apart from that which isn't ideal. Right, I'll print off an instruction book and let's see if there's a master reset. Right, so I've printed off a copy of the instruction book. So we'll look at how this is programmed. Right, so I'm going to do this because it may need a master reset, and this may be the way of doing it. So first thing we're going to do is we want the mic. So with the set in the off position, press the transmit button, the PTT button, and the down button on the microphone. So press that, and switch the radio on. And we're going through with the, there we are, UK, then what? And with the can be accessed using use the up and down buttons to select, turn the radio off and on again, and it should show the pre-programmed band. Well, that didn't work. Let's try that again then. Whilst pressing the PTT and up and down and the down button on the mic together, turn the radio on. Then press the up and down button to get to this thing you want, which we do, which is there. To select the band we want. Turn the radio off and then on again. Oh, of course, it may be that we haven't got it. It's now in the UK. Right, okay. So now when I switch it on, it does say UK. Well, I'll tell you what, we'll put the signal generator to 2779125. Now we don't have a service manual for these, so there's not a lot we can do, and it may well be scrap, but we'll give it a fighting chance. We'll start by putting it on channel 20. So press transmit. It's not doing. You see, this is what I'm on about. Fake meters. I'm pressing transmit. It gives a full bars, but it's not transmitting. So it's absolute bull on current sets. It's just a glorified transmit light. I can assure you that the radio is drawing 130 milliamps and it isn't transmitting. So we'll get our walkie-talkie on and just see whether it's transmitting a few inches. So what, we'll turn the squelch down. 1 2 1 2. It is. So it's generating the channels. I'll do that again. Testing 1 2. Testing 1 2. Now that's good news. But it's not receiving anything. Now I was thinking the synthesizer wasn't running. That does bring on a different light. So what have we got there? Well, I would think that's a voltage regulator. So I would expect it to be something like 8 volts, like they usually are. Let's pop the earth onto the chassis. It's got rail voltage going in. That'll be earth, and that will be, it's 9 volts. So I'm going to press transmit whilst, and as you can see, it doesn't shift. So it's not, there's no lack of volts there from the voltage regulator. So we'll swap meters and we'll get the RF voltmeter out like we did the other day, and we'll see whether it's a duff output transistor or driver even. So that's going to be the driver just there. And we've got RF to the driver. We've got nothing coming out of the driver. So we'll put that away again. We'll just make sure that the driver's actually got some power going to it. So, at this stage, either the output transistor is short circuit or the driver transistor is open circuit. Now, my logic here is, what about that there? My logic here is, if that was short circuit, it would drag down the driver. I think the easiest thing to do, because this isn't mounted through the hole, is actually to unsolder the output transistor and then see whether the driver transistor gives more of an output. So I'll turn the power off. I wonder if it's been reverse polarity or 24 volted. Actually, just before we go any further, can I hear that read relay? Yes, I can. Turn the power off. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, because this will be ROHS compliant solder, which is not going to be easy to unsolder, so we'll just apply some real solder. Right, we'll power it back up again. So, back on the driver, we have RF, and we don't have RF coming out. So I just feel like we've got a duff driver transistor. Or have we got a fault with something that controls that? I'll just get the transistor tester onto the output transistor without taking it out of the radio, because we've managed to release its legs. Probably have to hold this one on. I can believe that. Enhancement mode, N-channel MOSFET. I can believe that. So we're going to have to take out the driver transistor, which looks pretty conventional. It appears to be body bound in its insulation kit. That took some getting out. Now then, take the insulation bush out, and now we're somehow going to have to try and unsolder this. It's double-sided board and it's plated through, so this isn't easy. I might have to pass it on to Mr. Chippie. Once again, I'll solder this up because of the type of solder they have to use these days. So my training would be to cut the leads off this and then extract the pins one by one. That would leave us in a bit of a dilemma. I'll pass that across to Mr. Chippie. For now I'll just cut this extension off the dodgy bit of... and if we get this working, we'll renew that properly. One other thing to check is that this hasn't come away. Mind you, there's another point. I don't recall when the signal generator was on this that the power, the S meter was reading anything. connect it back up, I kind of, once I put it onto UK channels, I never kind of checked this again. Let me power it back up. So we're on channel 20. The signal generator is on channel 20. No, there's absolutely nothing. I'm getting a slight hum through the extension speaker, you know, like the whine from the CPU. Right, we'll pause this and we'll send this over to Mr. Chippie. So moving on to this a few hours later, I've had Mr. Chippie take out that driver transistor, and that's fine. I took the leads off the output transistor, which is some kind of not a FET. It's not an ordinary transistor. There's been soldering around this audio IC, but you know what? It struck us. We were discussing this. Mr. Chippie and I were discussing this in the car as we went to the supermarket to do some shopping. Because this has got AM capability, if this was in AM mode, when it was put on a bad aerial, then it would blow the audio IC. Because the feed to the transmitter goes to a modulation transformer, which is fed from the audio amplifier. So if the audio amplifier failed, you'd have no receive, which we've got, and no transmit. Now I've found a dry joint. We've now got a signal coming through. I don't know whether I showed you that. So I've just rigged up our little bench amplifier. So I'm going to just prod this on the output, and if I put, you can tell that's our signal generator. So it is receiving, and if I turn down the signal, again just to prove that we're not making it up, especially when you get it on, you know, it's definitely, that was about 30 microvolts with the, there's a squelch on. Wonder if we can turn the squelch down. Yeah. So I'm going to get Mr. Chippie to change the audio IC. Okay, so we've moved on to the next day. I spent 4 hours, Mr. Chippie and I spent 4 hours. We didn't get on with the organ because I wanted to get this done, and I wanted to get this working, because I thought, well, unless it's been blown up, I'm sure we can get through it. So just to recap, to get it to this working state, what has happened is Mr. Chippie's reflowed this surface mount part, which has at some point been changed. Whether or not it's gone back to Thunderpole, because that has been fitted by an engineer, but there was a dry joint on it. So I will have to put these lids back on. We found that there's a crack on the printed circuit board under the modulation transformer, probably because it's been dropped or thrown in disgust. We've changed the audio IC. I don't know whether it's been on a high SWR when used in AM mode, and that's what zapped it. But a lot of things to stop it from working. And I wanted to resurrect it from scrap. I wanted to do the right thing for Alan as well, being so kind as to give it us. So we will change the power lead, but that can be done behind the scenes. So I had to look at our video from 6 years ago when I actually did this type of set last, because I couldn't find the paperwork. So I've done a photograph and I've coloured in the bits with my best crayons, and hopefully there was the unknown pot, and that was about it. So we're going to go through this. Let's see if it still works overnight. Well, I think the answer is yes. There is some background noise. If you are into valves, you'd think we've got a noisy valve. I don't think it's going to stop it working, but don't know whether we've got a noisy capacitor. Anyway, we'll see whether we can tune it. We'll start with transmit. I'll put picture in picture on. I've got to get through another set as well today, otherwise we're going to be holding up, and that's something I don't want to be doing. And get on with the organ. I want to finish the part 31 video. Okay, so hopefully we can see that we've got transmit, and it is over 3 watts. Did I ever get a sheet out for this set? I don't think I did I? I don't even know where I've put the other clipboard. Okay, well, we better go looking. For some reason we've got a yellow one. Right, it's 3 watts. If we can work this up and down, we'll see what we've got on other channels. So on channel 1, I've got 3 watts. And on channel 40, got 2.9 watts. So it doesn't have low power. I've got a feeling these two capacitors near the audio amplifier probably have seen better days. I'll get Mr. Chippie to change those. I think that's where we're getting a bit of a crackle from. I don't think it would be unusable at all. Right, let's look at deviation. Oh, needs to go back to channel 20 for that. Wallow. 4.5. That's been fiddled with, hasn't it? We're not doing that. Let's see what the frequency is doing. See on that camera. 27,79103. We'll do that right now. So I don't know whether whether I told you, because I've just gone and done something else in between. I had to look at my previous video. There we go. 27,79126 will do me nicely. Right, I need to just put the signal generator on frequency. Right, let's have a look at the synad meter. Now I'll have to plug that in because we're on the extension speaker I use as a PA speaker. So for 12 dB, we've got 0.47. For 10 dB, we've got 0.35. And if it does 20, about there, it is 2.7. Squelch. So full squelch, tight, opens at a ridiculous 30 millivolts. But it does at least open, and at its most sensitive, I'll just put that to standby, turn the squelch to threshold. Comes in at 2.6 microvolts, which is a bit too high. So the S meter, if we can look at that without disconnecting the radio, it just says 1, 2, 3, 4, so is I would presume that the third one is your S9 and the red one's plus 30. That's all I can really think of, in which case it's 300 microvolts. So that's not applicable, that's fine, that's fine, that's fine, that's not applicable. Mic works, we haven't tested the speaker. Right, so we'll get on with, I'll just check transmit current is 995 milliamps. So as we bring the power up, that will obviously increase. So power, if I look at my, there is no tune-up on the transmitter. It just has a power control, and that's there. And at 13.8 volts, 3.6 watts is our maximum. So I've just gone to some other channel. So channel 40 is 3.5 watts. And at channel 1 it's 3.6 watts. So we'll go back to channel 20. I'll put the right meter on as well, you can see what we're doing. So channel 20, we are doing 1.08. Now I need to bring the deviation down, and the deviation is there. So we'll use the oscillator. Let's try it there. Wow, it's still too loud. Try it there. Wow, nearly there. Wow, you get, that's where we are. So you get, if it's too wide, it doesn't get louder unless you're listening on a Fidelity 1000. So that's now 2.2 to 2.5 kilohertz peak, which is where we want it. So the transmit meter's fake. I mean, it doesn't matter whether the thing's transmitting or not transmitting. It lights up a full set of bars. There we go. Isn't that wonderful? No, it's not, because even when the set wasn't transmitting, it still lit up a full set of bars. And I can't think of any current models. There may be one where the transmit meter isn't just programmed to do that. Those Midland 78 Plus multis may have the foibles, but at least they do have a transmit meter that reads some RF. So that's real on those. So the thing on this is to do its receiver. So I'd like to put it that way on. We can return this little amplifier back to Mr. Chippie's bench as well. Right. So it's not insensitive at all. Let's turn the squelch down. So I'll tell you what, we'll see if we can do the detector. Now, when we did the last tune-up, that's clearly the detector, but we couldn't get it to make any difference, so let's see if it does on this. So we'll put 100 microvolts on, and we'll put the oscilloscope on. We will, it's there. Put enough volume on for it to, whichever volume is. Not got much volume this set, so I'm presuming the detector is out, or the capacitors are faulty in the amplifier, which would be what the crackling's about. I mean, that might be AM detector. We're not going to be tuning AM up. You'd have to reprogram it for EU, and then the switch on the front becomes AM and EU. So they're both EU, but one's AM and one's FM. Because I've got no interest whatsoever in AM, we've demonstrated it before on this model, I won't be doing the AM at all, because I'm not reprogramming it. The set should be made that when I put it into UK, it allows it. Well, these sets were made designed just before 2014 when that change happened. So I'm not doing that. But for those of you who want to put it into EU mode, the AM modulation preset is that one there. So I'm telling you that, and that's all we're going to discuss on there. We're not putting it into CPT. There's no point, because it's so rubbish. I often only get half a mile range because of foreign interference. So we'll go through, put onto that meter, see whether we can get a. It's probably spot on. Well, I've just got a bit more out of that. Bearing in mind I'm tuning this up on UK channels rather than in the middle. You know, you'd be tuning it up on channel 1 of UK or channel 40 of CPT if you wanted the 80 channels, but we don't. To be honest, it's spot on, apart from that was very slightly out. So we'll look at our new synod reading. And we've now got 0.43 for 12 decibels, 0.33 for 10, and the 20's improved, but it's all about noise anyway, that 0.65. Actually, am I reading that right? That's come down dramatically. Yeah, it's 1.65. So now we'll need to alter the squelch. And the squelch preset is there. So I'm going to set the squelch to full on the radio. What we're going to do is adjust this preset until the signal comes in. And that's now. I'll put the attenuator on so we can actually see that. So if I drop that down away from 100 microvolts, the squelch comes in, which is what I want. So now we'll do the opposite and hope that it's tracking better than it was doing. So turn the squelch down, turn the signal generator to standby. That's parked at 0.3 of a microvolt. Set the squelch to threshold on the radio. Switch the signal generator back on. No, it's not any better. It's 2.5 microvolts. That could break up round scratchy corner. So it's got auto squelch on it. Let's see if that works better. I think it's still a preset for it, so I can adjust it with that preset if the auto squelch doesn't do what I want it to do. So switch that on. We get a light then saying auto squelch, and just let's see where that is. Well, that's really where you'd expect it to be. That is 1.5. So auto squelch sensitivity. Which is better than the 2.5. So we won't touch that. That's fine as it is. So I think that's been through everything now. So I think we've got some dodgy capacitors, and I'll get Mr. Chippie to get those changed. I'm just trying to feel if there's any heat on any of these. I dare say that one's not 100%. We've got so far with this. We may as well just see whether we can get it a little bit better, because this is the volume just isn't very good on this. And that is full whack, and it's we've just changed the audio IC, so I think what's happened to this in the past has not helped some of the capacitors there. So what else can we show you? These have got RF gain, but it doesn't do anything in FM. So let's put a small signal on and take the auto squelch off. Turn the squelch down so you can hear the signal generator. So if I put a signal on where you can see the meter, like there. So if I turn down the RF gain, you'd expect, or turn it up, you'd expect it to change that. Well, it doesn't. So I put that on full. I can turn that down from the signal generator, but it won't. This only is active on AM, and it's a bit of one of the foibles with this model. So I remember that before. So people think, oh, it's got RF gain. No, only on AM. And to access AM, you then have to not have UK. So we're not playing that game. So there we are. So I will just put these on the aerial. We'll run round. We'll finish the video and publish it. We'll do an on-the-air test. I need to put that shield plate back. But I'll get these capacitors changed behind the scenes. But it'll be quite usable as it is. But I just get that impression that I think I can feel a little bit of warmth on those two capacitors, and that's, but nowhere else. And that would be exactly the capacitors which would be affecting the volume there. So there's the things to do. I'll get him to change those, get him to change the power lead, but in the meantime I'll put our extension speaker. I'll tell you what, I'll put the lid back on as a temporary measure. Wherever I put it, there it is. Very thin wire on this. It's would easily be snapped. I don't know why they've done that. Oh, I do. Yeah, it's cheaper. So there's a newer version of this. Looks outwardly the same. Yeah, that is full volume. One Anna Roger. We'll put it on CEPT just for a laugh. And they're back to 19 when I can find it. So there we are, nobody on as usual. So there you go, that is resurrected. Oh, it's actually talking. Talk closer to your mic. Yeah, right. We'll switch this off if we can find out where that is. And I say we'll put it on an air test out later. So thank you, Alan, for that. I'm glad we've been able to resurrect it. A lot of work. So really, apart from the audio I see, we're going to have to change those capacitors. It wasn't so much wanting parts, but wanting a lot of attention.